and welcome to 3Q, where I interview industry professionals for just 15 minutes by asking three powerful questions. I'm your host, Rachel Vogel, and joining me tonight is Russ Tannen, the president at Dice. After establishing himself as one of the most respected tastemakers in London's live music scene at Vice, and then as an artist manager representing acts including Peace and Superfood, Russ has helped launch Dice. As a founding employee, he's been responsible for signing major venue deals with UK institutions, overseeing the company's global expansion, and led the growth of Dice's revenue streams, all while securing major international partnerships. Most recently, he's relocated to New York to set up their second HQ, and since arriving, he's signed some of the best independent venue and promoter deals across the US. So, Russ, intro behind us. Are you ready to dive into these three questions?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Rachel.
Imagine for a second you're sitting down with your 25-year-old self. What one piece of advice would you give him on a personal note? And what one piece of advice would you give him from a business perspective?
Okay, so at Dice, we do these presentations called Petra Kutchers. It's like a Japanese presentation format where you do 20 slides and it's 20 seconds a slide and you kind of tell your life story. It's one of my favorite things that we do. And I'm going to do mine, sort of redoing mine pretty soon. And so I've been looking at pictures of myself at 25, which was 11 years ago. One personal piece of advice I'd like to give myself then is just to start wearing all black now. Like, don't wait another few years. Like, I was doing it by the time I was like 30, but like the fashion choices back then, it wasn't working. I wish I would have just gone all black every day like I do now, and it's perfect. So I'd have just sped up that whole process and life would have been easier. Professionally, I think the best advice I could have given myself then was just to lean into like my superpowers, like lean into the things that only I can do and the things that I really enjoy. I think that sometimes earlier in your career, you feel like you have to get really good at everything, or you're trying to get really good at things that you actually don't enjoy because maybe you don't realize that other people really enjoy the things that you don't. Like some people like really love finance and like that's their superpower. They're like amazing at that. And if that's not your strength, then don't like stress it trying to be like amazing at those things and just try and identify as early as possible the things that you're really good at and that you really excel at and lean into those things and understand that just because you might find something easier or more natural doesn't mean that everyone else does and the fact that you find those things kind of more natural to your own skill set that you just have, and you should just kind of focus on those and really just enjoy it, like enjoy the things that you're good at and focus on them. So yeah, I would love to go back and tell myself that. I definitely spent a little while stressing about trying to do it all.
I think it's funny that you say the all black thing. I feel like that's so true in this industry. I like the one thing I would tell anybody is get a leather jacket. Everybody wears a leather jacket, a black leather jacket. That's the staple
Yeah,
item.
yeah,
Awesome.
that's great advice.
So before we move into the second question, I want to know what's like the one thing that you look for when you're scouting a promoter or a venue? Like, do you have a checklist? Do you have to go walk through the venue? Like, what's that like?
Yeah, so really like although my role at Dice has changed a lot over the last 10 years since we kind of were starting the business, that I've always been responsible for bringing on the partners, and really the mission has been to find the best independent operators in the world. So if you're thinking about amazing clubs like DC10 in Ibiza or elsewhere in New York, these like really iconic venues that just are super ambitious, you know, curated, like creatively excellent, um, people that can achieve scale while also staying like super credible. And those are the dream partners to work with. And there's, you know, hundreds and hundreds that we work with now, and I certainly couldn't name them all, but that's the type of partner that we look for. People that want to stay independent and want to create the best experiences for fans. Like I think that's the hunt that we're on every day.
Okay, moving right along. Every industry has its dirty little secrets, and we all know that it is no different in the music industry. Sometimes people think that's a bad thing, but that's not always the case. Sometimes they can be quite good. What's one secret you would like to share with our listeners about the industry?
It's a really interesting time to be in ticketing. There's been a lot of things that I think have been more secretive and not transparent about the industry that we've been trying to change for a long time. We've been trying to push transparency for fans and for artists ever since we started the business. And we were artist managers before doing dice and really kind of came at it from that artist perspective. And I think a lot of that stuff is starting to come to light. You're seeing a lot more in the US specifically. Just yesterday, for example, there's a new campaign that we're part of lots of different rights organizations and other ticketing companies and NEVA and the Managers Forum and everyone coming together to launch a new campaign called Fix the Ticks, which is really about bringing some of the things that have been a bit more secret to light and trying to fix ticketing for fans. And a lot of that's around transparency. And I think there's a bit more to come in terms of how is it that so many scalpers are able to buy tickets? You know, why hasn't there been more done to stop that? And who are the real players there? And I think that those things are going to come to light. There's been a lot coming out about fees. We've always pushed the idea that the first price you see when you go to buy a ticket should be the same at the end of the checkout. There should never be those surprise fees at the end. And we're really happy to see the more transparency around that happening now in the industry. So there's more people also following that model. And there's also a bit more of a conversation around why those fees have got so high, especially in the US. And so I think that it's a funny time to think about secrets because it feels like everyone's kind of getting all the secrets are out there now. So it's an interesting time, but we've always been pushing for more transparency.
So would you say that's like the most difficult piece of working in ticketing, or is there another aspect of it?
I think in the US specifically, the to start a ticketing company is very difficult, and we spent a long time building in Europe and in the UK first, where there's a less of an exclusive model. In the US, every ticketing deal with a venue is 100% exclusive, which means that if you lose a deal, then you're not going to be the ticketing part. You're not going to sell a single ticket for that venue for the next 3 to 5 years, which is, you know, a hard reality of those partnerships. And part of that is why those deals have become, you know, very rich deals to get in the room to do. So all of these things are connected, and that's certainly one of the hardest things is kind of getting out there. But our approach has been to build the best product, to keep the fan as our main customer. So we're always thinking about the best experience for the fan, and that in turn has paid off well for us in terms of the types of partners we're able to sign.
And I would assume one of the major benefits is you get to go to cool shows.
I go to so many shows. I go. I love going to shows. I think it's the best thing to do with your time. I think that everyone should go to shows as many nights a week as they can. I don't know how many shows I went to, like 100 shows last year. I don't know how many shows I've been to already this year, but
Oh my gosh.
I go to so many. I go to so many shows. I'm going to Brooklyn Mirage tonight for the opening for this summer season, so I'm looking forward to that.
I love that place. All right. Final question. Let's get into it. Throughout your career, I can only imagine you've been asked a lot of questions, whether for industry conferences, the media, or even a promotion. But throughout all of those interviews and all of those questions, there has to be one question that you've never been asked but would have liked to. So, what is that question, and what would be your answer?
So I'm a huge reader. We were talking just before. I deleted my Instagram like 6, 7 years ago now, and I started like reading a lot instead, and started reading like 50 books a year. The last couple of years in New York, I haven't read quite as much,
Hmm.
maybe half that, but I'm still reading a lot, and it's just not something I've like ever been really asked about. And I was thinking about if I had to recommend now a book to everyone to read. I wanted to recommend a book. That was a question I'd love to be asked. So there's this book called Rave by Reinhold Goetz. I don't know how to say the name. It's Goetz. It's a German name that I obviously can't pronounce, but it's amazing. It's a reprint by an amazing publisher called Fitzcarraldo Editions. It's the best book which translates what going out, especially to like clubs, feels like. Like it in the book, you really feel like it's this story of this incredible time in Berlin and people going out to these clubs and you know that's the setting for the story. But when you're reading it, you really feel like you're on a night out with your friends and having this incredible night. And I've never seen anyone or read anyone capture that feeling as well as this book. So
Mhm.
it's just a really nice one, and I dare anyone to read this book and not want to go out to a club for a big dance. So yeah, that's my recommendation.
I love that. Yeah, I've really been trying to get back into reading books this year, so I'm gonna have to pick that up.
Yeah, well, maybe start with Rave and tell me what
I
you
will.
think. This is gonna could be a little book club we got going.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we'll start the 3Q book club. Awesome. Well, Russ, it's been so nice having you on the podcast. Thanks so much for taking the time. To everyone listening, I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. Stay tuned for next week, where I interview industry professionals for just 15 minutes by asking 3 powerful questions.